Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Reno Ukefest 2024 artist interview. We are here with Daniel Ho. Hello, Daniel. Welcome.
Hi, Danny Joy. Aloha, everyone.
We wanted to give you guys a chance to get to know the artist a little bit, so we're going to ask Daniel a few questions here. Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Um, I was raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, in a small town called Kaimuki, which is 2 miles north of Waikiki, and have loved music passionately since I think I was 3 years old, and studied different instruments along the way. Uh, Starting with the organ, ukulele was my second instrument, and then went on to other things like classical guitar and piano and things like that. Went to music school, moved to Los Angeles, and have been working here since 1990. So quite a while.
Yeah, I remember when you made that big billboard kind of thing, not billboard, but like a big poster of all of your albums from 30 years. Man. You've got to be the most active musician in the world, in my estimation. You do a lot.
Well, I'm really inspired, and thankfully after all these like 34 years now, I'm still inspired to create and write new things. I got to a point around the pandemic time when I did an album called Playing Through Changes, which is, life changes like the pandemic, where I recorded pretty much everything I wanted to record. Everything I wrote was recorded at that point, and that little moment in time where everything stopped gave me that opportunity to do that. And I thought, okay, I'm kind of done. I can die now. But life went on, surprisingly, and still finding projects and inspiration and working with other people and doing new albums and trying different things. So I feel
Yeah,
inspired to wake up in the morning and get to work.
that's so cool, man. Well, and you blessed me by working with me on the album that I'm touting as, yeah, I Can Die Now. I did an album with Daniel Ho. I've reached the peak.
And that was at the NAM show,
That was
and you sang Nobody Else and made everyone cry, and it's like we gotta record this song and put
man,
some
yeah.
songs around that, and that's what we did.
That was cool, man. I just love the way you play music, but I love the way you construct isn't right the word compose. You've got a whole colorful sounds theory system that I'm still trying to completely understand. But when like I listened to the album you and I made together, man, just all of the extra tinkling notes in the back and all this and that just brought the whole thing together in like this incredibly poetic way.
And your voice and the way you present things is so from the heart, so soulful and deeply emotional. That's where I think the blending of technique and some of those scholastic kind of things and then pure emotion come together on that album, Drop in My Flower.
Amen.
And that's what makes it beautiful because it comes down to really conveying emotion. And those things like the colorful sounds method, those are just tools that we use to access very specific emotions and
Yeah.
colors and sounds and feelings. And um, I am still experimenting with that. I've been using it since 1986, and absolutely everything I do, from ukulele to symphony pieces. And there's always more to learn about counterpoint and how to put things together and to become one with the techniques, the compositional techniques, so it's more instinctive than
Hmm.
intellectual.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so those of you, I'm sure you all are familiar with Daniel Ho, but he's won too many Grammys to put on his mantelpiece, even more Nahoku Awards. And I wanted to point out that I got to see him in a play, in a live action play that he co wrote down in LA. So he's also quite an actor. And I guess it was like a musical that you had together. What was that called?
Pineapple Mango.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And yeah, it's
That was
always been
so
a
fun.
passion of mine to do a musical.
Mhm.
Working on another one.
Oh,
Um, It's kind of half done. It's in the works, but it's one of those projects, ongoing projects for years.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was fun to string songs together to tell a story because the songs that I write are just songs about life experiences, and that's why they mean so much to me. And I feel lucky to be able to present them, and
Yeah,
do that for a living and share them with people.
cool, man. So, any of you watching at home, if you tend to be more like a Renaissance kind of a artist, where you're like, oh, I like this, but I also like this, but I also like this. Just, I mean, do it all. Although you do have to focus, and there's only so many hours in the day. How do you make time for all of these different things that you do?
Uh, I sleep a lot
You sleep a lot.
because I do. And I was told by a composition teacher at Dick Groves, his name is David Angel, he said, never write tired.
Mm,
And the reason for that is because if you write tired, your music's going to sound tired. And you don't come up with the best ideas. If you're completely uh, alive and energetic and you feel good about something, you can do something efficiently,
mm-hmm.
right? And if you're kind of tired, like, oh my gosh, I just want to finish this last thing and take a nap and whatever, then what you do is kind of not at your optimal. It's like your battery's only 75% instead of 99.6 or something.
Hey.
So yeah, and then when I do something, I'll practice drums every day and I'll work on I and I don't do it to any specific rhythm. I just spin the metronome on my phone, press play, and it could be 143 beats per minute, and then I'll work on a technique that will fit in 143 beats per minute so
Oh,
I can
wow.
be familiar with any tempo and sit at a tempo and lock to a groove and work on my double stroke rolls, paradiddles, double paradiddles, and that contributes. I'm actually practicing ukulele and piano and voice at the same time because if you improve an aspect of your musicality like rhythm, that affects absolutely everything you do. So you can put a pocket down an ukulele without even touching the ukulele, right? Because
Huh.
you have this internal clock that you're developing. So I sort of look at practicing that way. Also, as you get older, you deal with repetitive stress injuries, which, knock on wood, I don't have, because if I
Mhm.
feel something even start to hurt, I stop and I'll get on the piano and do something that doesn't hurt, or drums or whatever, and then go back to it and still get the hours I need to work on something. But the other thing about it too is it's always fresh and new. Same with writing. If I worked in contemporary jazz, my band Kilauea, which I did in the early 90s, and I still did contemporary jazz today, I would be writing versions of the same songs over and over again
Mhm.
because it's the same types of rhythm, same instrumentation, same a lot of things. Whereas, studying Mongolian long songs will help me approach a melody a whole different way. They still use the same pentatonic scale that we do in blues, but you wouldn't even know
Huh.
because the way that they put notes together and rhythms together and melodies is nothing like what we're familiar with. So you can find inspiration in different instruments, different sounds, and um, in the arts, I see kind of it's not just A and B, you divide it in half, but there are traditionalists and creatives.
Ah.
And I found this to be true in my experience in working with people. And traditionalists believe in tradition and doing things a certain way. That is the way Bach did it. It was staccato, legato, staccato, whatever. And this is the tempo, and this is how you do it, and that's not how you do it. And this is how you play slack key and use these tunings, whatever it is. And then the creatives would be like, I don't want to do anything that's been done before.
Uh-huh. So that's
And
more like the category that you fall into.
pretty much.
Although you
And
studied Bach, you were telling me like study counterpoint, study Bach, study the classics, right? So that you can be informed, but not so you can just get stuck in somebody else's style.
yes, I think it's important to understand because you don't want to skip that step and just ignore everything that the history of music and how it was,
Yeah.
why have an equal tempered scale, whatever, right? Like this kind of counterpoint or Bach 18th century harmony. I still write using his choral writing techniques from the 18th century with an Indian polyrhythm,
Oh, I know.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like taking traditions and then combining them together. And you and Perry play that Napana Ilua so well. Um, and very few people play that.
I know. We were bragging about that the other day. We were like, we're the only two people in the world that can play the full version of Napana Elu with Daniel.
With
Nobody knows what that
harmonics.
means.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, when you listen to the song, you'll go, what? But yeah, it's
Yeah.
that's one of those you gotta listen to it so much that it just absorbs into your psyche so that it's second nature for
Yeah.
me, because the counting is just really really hard to do. But once music is also an emotional thing. So it's like an intangible, spiritual, emotional component of life, sort of. So it kind of, you can memorize it differently than you can just information or math
Right. Right.
equations or something.
Right. It's supposed to be emotional and not a math equation, but but it's also rooted in tradition and math.
And math.
10 and a half times 2, 7 times 3.
Yeah.
So it's neat to see how all these pieces fit together. And then there's music, there's arranging, there's orchestration, and then there's audio engineering where you're actually orchestrating frequencies.
Yeah.
And if you get far enough into that, then when you start mixing an ukulele sound and you know every frequency and where each note lies and how loud it is relative to the octave above or below, and EQing songs based on what key it's in, that's magical too, because you can make something sound and feel so natural by addressing things so specifically. But it's really scientific, and we need computers and technology to do something that detailed.
Hmm.
Um, but you also need the musical sense to make it feel. And the end result should not feel like, I used 5 bands of fully parametric EQ and a Butterworth high pass filter to achieve this sound, with a
Right.
Lexicon 480. It shouldn't sound like that. That should all be invisible behind the scenes. But it's exciting to learn about those tools. I do everything with Universal Audio. They have this new microphone called a DLX that models 40 of the best microphones on earth. And I just change between each one. And,
Oh.
it's amazing what technology allows us to do these days. But the music in the end has to be organic. And I only do acoustic music, acoustic piano, acoustic guitar, bass,
Yeah.
slack key, because acoustic instruments are timeless. So it's a weird
Whole
place to be
combo.
here,
Yeah.
completely dependent on my laptop
Yeah.
and software.
I want to just circle back to something you said earlier. I remember a workshop you did in San Jose where you were talking about the Mongolian music between sky and prairie. And you had a whiteboard and you were drawing and you were like, this is how I designed the song. The first motif represents the grasslands. And you like drew the straight line. And you're like, the next motif goes up a little more like this, like the mountains in the background or something. And you had these three different elements of the landscape, the visual landscape of Mongolia. And that had inspired you to compose all of the motifs, or in other words, I guess, little melodies within the song that created the song. And to me, that was fascinating, bringing the visual experience into a musical sense. Now, that's the kind of like creativity thing that, you're not going to learn from Bach necessarily, but just from life.
So I was sitting in a car on the Mongolian grasslands, filming a music video, driving around, and I saw the grass below and then the mountains in the distance, and I thought, how would I realize that in musical, in a musical sense with sound? And then came up with those themes, put them together on the ukulele, and
Yeah.
that's kind of the inspiration and the reason for the song. In the same way Napana Ilua draws from, in Indian polyrhythm and jazz harmonies and classical melodic development techniques, and then you put it all together into something that ends up being unique. But there's a reason for everything,
Mm.
which brings me to my composition teacher Emmett Yoshioka, who was teaching me in high school, and I brought him this obligato I wrote for violins or whatever. He's trying to teach me how to write for orchestra. And I said, "Oh, what do you think of this?" And he goes, "Why did you write that?" And I said, I thought it sounded good. And he said, don't ever bring me anything unless you can explain why you did it.
Dang.
So you take a theme and you develop it, da 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 da, like that. And so that was sort of, that I wrote like that ever since. There has to be an origin and rooted in something, yeah.
Yeah. I had a similar experience with an art teacher that used to challenge the students all the time. Her name was Shimpke, and she'd come over, and every time she came over, you'd be like, "Oh, great," and she'd go, "Same thing. So why'd you do that?" And you go, "Well, because I liked the way it looked. I liked it." Yeah, but why? Was always her question. But why? But why? And she'd just
Mhm.
kneel you down until you're like, "Well, I don't know because I liked it." And she'd just go, "Okay," and she'd walk away. And so it challenged me and my friends were challenged to be like, "Okay, what do you mean okay? You just asked me a bunch of times." Like, so it made me think about that too. Like, why? What kind of message are you trying to send, or what kind of a painting are you trying to paint? What kind of experience are you trying to give to the listener? It's really
Yeah.
important that there's a fundamental why.
Yeah, in art, like your paintings and everything, the things that we'll leave behind, I mean, literally paints a picture of who you are and
Yeah,
what you treasure and value, right?
yeah,
So whatever body of work you leave behind as a musician, as an artist, that's you, and that's gonna live on the internet, somewhere on YouTube or
yeah,
in a painting in someone's house. But that's you, and then that's what we have, and that's the reward in itself, I
yeah.
think.
Leaving that legacy behind. Well, you've done a fantastic job. Um,
Trying, still working at it.
Speaking of still working, what are you working on currently? Any passions or projects that you want to tell us about?
Well, on 8808, August 8th, I celebrated my 16th anniversary with Lydia, and we also released a new album
Oh,
called uh, Lokahi, which
okay.
means unity in Hawaiian, but colors in harmony.
Colors in Harmony.
And this is an album of new original Hawaiian songs I did with Amy Ku'ulealoha Stillman.
That's right.
And Halau Hula Keali'i Onalani it's actually a choral album. So all kinds of voices and counterpoint, and we're talking about Bach 18th century harmony. Like I did everything using his voice leading techniques because I just love that. And Dave Gruzin's harmonies are Bach and Dave Gruzin is kind of where I draw my rhythmic, harmonic, and melodic inspiration from. And so I've been working with Halahula Keli'i Onalani, Keli Isabalos for oh 15 years or so, and we do so much together, live at the Getty Center.
Okay.
Um, and so I thought, I've never done a choral project before, so I thought I'm gonna do Hawaiian music that way. So I had a lot of fun writing counterpoint, and the instrument would be like, a slack key guitar or an ukulele or a piano and there are a few songs that are big productions that took me months to record, like Ku Ko, which I did with Nick Lee, who's a big pop music producer here in LA. But we did a song together called Ku Ko, and it's about generations of immigrants coming to America to
Oh,
create a better life for themselves and their, you know, um, kids and grandkids and so on. We're all immigrants here. So many of us, yeah. Well, all of us.
yeah.
And then we also put Eddie Kenzo's Ukulele Asanyu, Let
Yeah.
Us Be Instruments of Joy and Love. And Colors in Harmony, which you're singing on, has
Yeah.
never been released on an album. And
Oh, I'm
your
on the
voice,
album.
yeah, and it's like this angelic voice where you come in and you at the end, at the top of a whole chorus of singers, the
Mhm.
halal, and then a bunch of new songs. Oh, Star Spangled Banner and Hawaii Pono'i, which we sang at Dodger
That's
Stadium
right.
recently.
And you sang it live, didn't you?
Yeah,
How'd it
with
go?
ukulele, and it was crazy. I was nervous. Yeah, it's an octave and a half, and
Ah,
it kind of goes all over the place. But
yeah.
what I did was I wrote an arrangement where it um, combined the Hawaii state anthem, Hawaii Pono'i, as counterpoint to the Star Spangled Banner. So it
Oh,
has two
that's
anthems
right.
in that minute and a half piece, and then we recorded that with the halau. It's an album I'm excited about. We're entering it in the Grammys this year.
That's right. Okay.
Uh,
Can you hear me? For some reason, it's freezing. Hopefully, you're not saying too many fantastic things. All right, we're back after a very short technical difficulty. You know, Daniel and I could talk for hours and hours about the creative process and everything that goes into this beautiful life of music making. So when you come to Reno Ukefest, you too will have these fascinating conversations if you come to Daniel's workshops. So Daniel, why don't you tell us about what you're going to be teaching at Reno this year?
well, I'll be doing 5 different workshops. In keeping with the hit songs, 70s, 80s, 90s themes, I'll be doing Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. I love that group since grade school. Been big fans from Saturday Night Fever.
Uh-huh.
Um, and this song, Staying Alive, is just an amazing recording, great groove, incredible vocals, and really fun ukulele parts that you can do, those electric guitar riffs and things like that. So I'll be doing Staying Alive, um, Call Me Al, which is an album from the 80s, 1986-ish, Graceland, Paul Simon. Right at the time when I was going to music school, this album was out, and we listened to it quite often, and it was quite a departure from pop music of the day.
Oh yeah.
And I had the chance to perform You Can Call Me Al with Bakiti Kumalo at the NAM show years ago. And he's an incredible musician, and he's the most gracious person in the world. So that's a fun song. It has neat riffs. The hook of the song is so much fun to play on ukulele. So I'll be sharing that.
Okay.
And also, one of my favorite musicians ever is Billy Joel. And when I was in grade school, I used to play his piano songs and sing. I had a microphone set up at my piano, and my dream was to be the next Billy Joel. One of I have two favorite Billy Joel songs, of course, Piano Man, and the other one is She's Always a Woman. And She's Always a Woman is not really a jam song because the bridge changes keys every 2 bars. And it's a kind of a Bach-like chord progression, the most beautiful progression. Um, and I'm gonna share with everyone how to play that on ukulele because it isn't that easy. But once you get it, it's really neat. So I'm going to also talk about how you can do it with 3 strings by just putting your thumb on the fourth string, the G string, and
Yeah.
playing these harmonies on the other 3 strings because um, music is generally kind of triadic. You can define mostly everything with the root, third, and fifth.
Yeah, I remember you teaching me that in one of our lessons that you know, putting your finger on the fret on the face of the ukulele, that's the soundboard. So
Mhm.
I said, well, what am I supposed to do? Just hover? And you said, well, yeah, or you can put your thumb, if you're not using the G string, you can rest your thumb on the G string to do a lot of the other work that you're doing some of the time. And that helped me a lot ground myself some of the time. And then some of the time I'm free flowing and I'm just plucking, you know, keeping my hand in one place.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the more difficult passages become easier when you anchor.
Yes.
So instead of anchoring on the soundboard where you're actually muting the resonance of the instrument, you can anchor on the G string and use your other 3 fingers to um, play the C, E, and A strings, and that makes it easier. So that's what I'll be teaching in She's Always a Woman. And it's also an introduction to the ekolu ukulele, which is that concept of using just the C, E, and A strings, which I am so passionate about uh, for the last few years. And as of January of this year, the instrument actually came out and we
Yeah.
have a new version of it. We have it as a tiny tenor, but now we also have it as a vintage soprano, which I hope we will be able to debut at Reno Ukulele Festival.
Yeah, and you know, we've been working up Drop in My Flower and I'm looking at playing the ukulele part on the ekolu. because there's going to be some strumming stuff going on. And so fretting in the key of E on a
Yeah.
regular ukulele is very difficult to do. And then Perry goes, yeah, but we also need some like Prince voicings, you know? So he's got kind of some of these funky Prince voicings that he's added into it. And that's all up the neck. And my
Yeah.
hands hurt when I do a bar. You know, I've got joint in my thumb and my wrist and stuff. So I'm very much looking forward to studying on a 3-stringed ukulele.
Yeah. And it's the best for jazz
Mm-hmm.
because just to make those voicing and play chord melody things or, with three strings, you can play a G chord and play all kinds of melodies on it or a G major seven because all your fingers are free. So I just debuted it on stage at the San Jose Jazz Festival this past Sunday. And I played three songs with my soprano ekolu. And
Nice.
because I thought it sounds interesting and different from the tiny tenor four string that I use for most of the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun
Yeah.
and easy, which makes it fun. Another class I will be doing is a Hawaiian song called Kapua o Kahikina. And I'll be teaching a little bit about the Hawaiian language. It's a Viennese waltz, finger style, and it is featured on my new album, Lokahi, with Halauhula Keali Ionalani. We'll also be talking about how the melody was constructed using classical techniques of theme and development. So we can show you, if you're a songwriter, how to develop melodies. And the last class is an ukulele jig, which hasn't been titled yet, but I'm going to debut it at the Ukulele Huli in about 8 days uh, in Dublin, Ireland. And it's
Ah,
a fun up-tempo piece. And I'm playing it with Ukulele Tuesday, which is like the most party animal group you've ever seen on ukulele. And with bodhrán and Gaelic vocals and tin whistle and all kinds of things like that. So it'll be fun, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with everyone at Reno Ukulele Festival because I will be learning about Celtic music from the guys.
Daniel Ho is a world music player, and that includes music from all over the world, including the 1970s and 80s pop scene in the US. Although you are kind of dipping into a little South African and, of course, Hawaiian and maybe some Gaelic kind of things coming in. So it's no surprise that your curriculum is so well rounded, like the globe.
Oh, thank you. And I do want to mention one more thing. I'm on Instagram, kind of. I try to post there at Daniel Ho Creations. And also, we released our new album, Lokahi. And going forward, I'm trying something new that I learned from Doug Reynolds. Actually, he told me I should do this. He said, you should sell your albums on your website as digital downloads. And the reason for that is the way music distribution has changed so much in recent years. It's very difficult for musicians to get by or even record a new song with the revenue you make on streaming, like
Yeah,
Spotify,
yeah.
like, a couple dollars a month or whatever. It doesn't make any sense for creatives. And I want to try something new where, you can audiences or fans can support their artists directly by just
Directly.
purchasing from their website and getting the music. And there's no, I mean, it's just, well, you know how it is. You've probably read about it.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what we're doing now. I'm going to be releasing everything. I still do iTunes and Apple Music. Apple Music pays 2.5 times more than Spotify does, but
Good to
I'll still
know.
be doing that to make it available with Apple and at danielho.com. And we'll have CDs as well.
Head on over to danielho.com, download the album, and support an amazing artist, and come to the Reno Uke Fest and take one of his classes. Thank you so much for meeting with us, Daniel. Sure appreciate your time.
Thank you, Danny Joy. I always love being at the Reno Ukulele Festival. The artists are amazing, everyone there. We just have so much fun. And I'll be backing everybody up on drums.
Yeah,
Just for fun,
I
because
know.
that's my new passion. I just
New
love
passion.
playing drums.
Keeping the passion alive, even though you're a master at ukulele, you're always dabbling and trying out new things and keeping that creative flow and energy going. So
Yeah.
that's
Speaking
your
of which,
testament.
I wanted to mention that I learning the koto, the Japanese chord instrument. It's a 13-string zither, and I have one, and it's set up in my studio, and I actually recorded Kapua o Kahikina on koto.
Oh, whoa! And that's on that album that you were talking about.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right,
So
cool.
I'm studying with Jun Kuromoto, who is the koto player for the band Hiroshima, which is a very famous contemporary jazz instrumental band, and she's been teaching me, and I'm loving the instrument because it works. It blends so perfectly with acoustic guitar and ukulele bass and piano, and it's just a new voice,
Um,
and yeah. So anyway, that's
Sounds
another new
cool.
passion.
All right. Well, you can check out Daniel Ho at the Reno Ukulele Festival coming up here October 9th through the 12th, 2024. Thanks a lot for meeting with us today, Daniel.
Thank you.
Everyone else have a beautiful day, and we'll see you at the next one.